All right. Hello, Princeton High School. My name is Mr. Jacobs, and I need to introduce our Veterans Day guest. This is the recreation of our traditional Veterans Day program. Joining us today is Evan Masters. So, Evan, if you could give us a brief introduction of yourself, if you thought about like what your Wikipedia page would say. What would your Wikipedia page say? Start with your educational background and then tell us a little bit about your military background.
All right. Good morning, Princeton Tigers. Fun fact, I actually fly into Princeton quite a bit with the Black Hawk helicopter, so you guys might see us once in a while. I graduated from Lake Crystal Welcome Memorial High School a couple years behind Mr. Jacobs down in southern Minnesota. After I graduated in 2011, I went off to South Dakota State University in Brookings for 2 years, and then I finished my last 2 years in the aviation program at Minnesota State University. After my first year of college, I joined the South Dakota Army National Guard, and I started drilling there in conjunction with the ROTC program. It's called the SMP program, and then I've been in since 2011, and that's kind of where I started as an engineer, and then I ended up getting commissioned as a lieutenant in 2015, and then went off to Army Flight School.
Awesome. I know you just returned from some active duty. So definitely thank you for your service. I think that's really important that we express our gratitude as Princeton High School and just me personally. But can you tell us about what Veterans Day means to you? And has your view of Veterans Day changed at all since serving some active duty?
Yeah, so Veterans Day to me, always growing up in a small town down in Lake Crystal, we'd always have, all the older gentlemen with the Legion, the VFW get together, and it was always kind of cool. It seemed like something that was much bigger than myself. And what Veterans Day means to me is it's honoring those who served before us and currently serving, but especially for me, it's always been the guys that have come before us, the guys and gals, and just with all the craziness in the world, just having somebody to look up to and honoring all the things and sacrifices they've done. And definitely, since I've served overseas, I think this is a common theme among fellow service members. Is we always kind of think that we didn't do, our life has not been as hard as the guys before us, and I think it's true in many cases. We have Wi-Fi and all those things overseas, but I'm still just as much appreciative of everyone's service before me and the guys and gals beside me as I was before I left. It's just get a little more of that experience of what it's like to go overseas and come back. That's maybe what's changed with my perspective mainly.
Nice. Can you just tell us a little bit more about your military background in general, and then tell us what it was like serving overseas? What was your experience?
Okay, well, I joined when I went to flight school. I came back after a year and a half, rated in the UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter, and then I went to St. Paul. Our flight facilities in downtown St. Paul, and started flying there. We activated in last October, and you go down to Fort Hood, Texas, in the National Guard. They make us prep for about 2 months, and then we got shipped overseas. So I went on a long airplane ride to Kuwait, and then you spend a couple days there, and then we flew up into Iraq. Unfortunately for me, I like to fly a lot. I was pushed into more of an admin role, so certain jobs you'll see that happens. I did a lot more computer work than I did flying. But when I did get to fly, it was very cool to see. We do various missions, taking troops and cargo, distinguished visitors, generals, and such, all across Iraq and Kuwait, even over to Jordan and Syria. So I got to see a lot of old country, and it was pretty surreal flying around in Iraq and seeing people living in villages that kind of look like southern Minnesota in a sense, but knowing that I'm in a much different country that's got a lot more hostilities and everything going on. So
yeah, that's great. So did you have a typical day overseas? I know you said you were doing a lot of computer work, which isn't necessarily your background, but can you tell us what a typical day was like during your active duty?
Yeah, so we did anywhere from 8 to 12-hour shifts. So I was a battle captain, so that's a job where we oversee all operations happening every day. So every day I'd come in, if I was shift in with the fellow battle captain, we get a shift change brief, we call it. We just talk about what happened the last 24 hours or the last shift up until mine, and then we go over any missions that are going on. So each day we'd have anywhere from some days no missions, all the way up to 6 missions, whether it was troop movements or very administrative movements, or they were, more tactical stuff. And then I'd be on computers doing reports, maintaining situational awareness of the operation, doing a lot of PowerPoint. I learned a lot about PowerPoint. So if you guys, anybody, I think that's probably a good skill regardless of where you go. PowerPoint, Excel, we did a lot of that stuff because it's, maintaining situational awareness. And the big, huge thing is mutual understanding from my level all the way up and down as far as you can go. So that's where those tools are important. So a lot of sitting just like this at a computer, sending reports up and down, and trying to keep everyone somewhat happy of what's going on.
Yeah, so that maybe isn't what people think of a traditional tour of duty overseas, but I know your background is as a pilot, so I think that's awesome. You've got some experience flying lots of different vehicles. So can you just tell us about what sparked your interest in aviation and what that path was like, eventually taking you the military route?
Yeah, so ever since I was a kid, I had some family that flew a little bit, and I just always thought that was pretty cool. And I had some uncles in the military, and that kind of turned me on to the military. And then I just thought it'd be pretty cool to fly helicopters. And coming from Lake Crystal, Minnesota, I didn't have a great GPA or anything crazy, but I did want to fly, so it seemed kind of out of reach. And I just kind of kept inquiring about it and asking questions, emailing different RTC programs, asking about how I could, what's the path to become a helicopter pilot. And that's kind of what sparked it, just all the stories of military, different events and stuff in history. And my first flight in a Black Hawk helicopter, it was kind of a cloudy day down at Fort Rucker, Alabama, where you do the training, and it was crazy. I couldn't believe all of a sudden, this isn't a Black Hawk. I've flown a helicopter just before for training, but how big that thing was and all the power, and I picked up on the collective, and this whole helicopter picks up, and I'm the one flying it. I can't even explain how crazy that was. I was not even thinking straight enough to fly the dang thing, but I was just, man, I get to fly this. It was like probably 16,000 pounds of just pure U.S. Army muscle. It was awesome.
Oh, that's pretty unbelievable, Evan. Can you tell us a little bit more about your current job when you're not serving active duty for the military? I know you're a pilot, so tell us a little bit about that too.
So my civilian job, I fly for SkyWest Airlines. I'm based out of Minneapolis, so that's a regional carrier. We fly for Delta, Alaska, United, and Alaska Airlines in some parts of the country. So that is a typical, I get a month schedule and trips anywhere from one overnight to just up to 4 days or so. And I just fly pretty much everywhere from both coasts into Canada. We do some Mexico flying. I don't do much of that at all, but just you're buying a ticket on delta.com, and if you're going to a certain destination at a certain time, we might fly on our smaller plane. But we're the ones where you can't fit your huge, oversized carry-ons in the overhead bin. So that's the plane I fly.
I want to unpack your interest and your love for flight a little bit more, Evan, because that's something I've always really admired about you. I think even as a high school student, you were pretty driven and goal-oriented, and you mentioned that flight school and aviation maybe felt a little bit out of reach. But can you just speak to the grit and determination and growth mindset that you felt like you needed to have in order to get to where you are right now?
Yeah, I think the big thing that I see is just realizing that I know you hear a lot of teachers, a lot of people, parents telling you that, hey, if you believe it, you can achieve it. All these things that are written on the walls, and it can seem kind of out of reach because hey, how could I do that, or whatever? I'm from a small town, or I'm not the smartest guy in the classroom or in the books. But to me, what I thought was important was asking the questions of people that actually do the job, not listening to someone that maybe recruits it that doesn't do it. Talk to the actual people doing it and ask them, hey, what are the steps? What is for real? How do you go about it? And then that's when I would determine, why couldn't the steps are not that hard. So instead of looking at the broad thing, hey, I want to play in the NBA, I want to be a helicopter pilot in the Army, look at those steps involved to it, and you knock those out as you go. And it's really, that's kind of what I did for all of them. Just what are the stepping stones to get there, and keep talking to people in the industry or in the job that you want to do, and get those tips from people that have already been successful before you. And I think that that's kind of what I did.
And, if I remember right, it's been a while since you and I have been around each other, but as a high school student, early on, you were identifying those people and having those conversations and asking people that, fly with you. Can you tell us a little bit? Do you remember back that far to when you were in high school and the things you were doing?
Oh, definitely. So I do remember the first time going out to an airport and asking a guy about flying, and he's, hey, you want a cup of coffee? Because, everyone starts drinking coffee, it seems. And I was acting like a cool guy at the airport drinking coffee that I did not like. But I will tell you, it is pretty good. I got some stuff here, so it's good. But, yeah, I mean, sending emails to people in ROTC programs is big, but especially up in Princeton, you got the airport right there. It is so easy just to drive up there. If you go with your parents or with some buddies and talk to the airport manager, and there's people there guaranteed that there's someone that will open their hangar and want to show you the airplane, and you could get a flight. There's the EAA is a huge program, Experimental Aircraft Association. They do Young Eagle flights all the time. That is something you can do. I think Princeton probably has an EAA chapter. I have to look it up, but in the Twin Cities area, there's so many opportunities. And I will do one plug that if anyone is interested, there is ACE camp is a big thing that they do every summer. I'm not sure how COVID's going to affect that. I did not know about this in high school, but I see it as I got older and involved in it. It basically take high school students. I think it's anywhere from 9th to 12th grade. You can go on like a week-long camp, and they go and explore all of the civilian and military aviation opportunities that there are. It's just down in the Twin Cities. So
I like that. Our theme as a building this year is we're all in this together, and the themes for our building are identified by a group of students each year. So could you just talk a little bit about what that means to you, and especially coming from a military background where I think there's a really strong bond and camaraderie and element of teamwork and working together. Can you tell us a little bit about what that means to you and how it applies to you personally and in the military?
Yeah, so definitely, I think that's a good theme for all aspects of life, whether it's your family at home or with your team or in the military or just your civilian job. What I see big time in the military is that we have people from all different backgrounds that show up to a place, and we're sleeping in the same big room with bunk beds next to each other for a while, and realizing that you might not like somebody, you might like somebody. People jive. Where people are happy, they get sad, they're grumpy at each other, and it keeps going. But at the end of the day, we all need to work together, or else we can't complete the mission. And that sounds pretty cliche, but it's 100% true that you're as strong as your weakest link, and they always say that, but it's very true, because if we have someone holding us back, we can either get on that person in a bad way and push them away, but you can't do that. You need to, have some empathy, figure out what's the problems, and try to train that person to get better and figure out what the problems are, because in certain situations you don't have time to stop the mission. So, and we also can't just drop the person off. We have to push them to get better, and all of us will move forward as one team. So
yeah, absolutely. And
hopefully that somewhat makes sense.
Yeah, if I were to unpack that a little bit, I think there were some elements of diversity that that comes down to, because there's people that come from all different types of backgrounds. So can you just talk about that for a second, and what it's like to all be accountable to the same mission and all be in something together, but everybody coming from a different experience and diverse backgrounds?
Yeah, so my roommate was from Reno, Nevada, so bigger city, different lifestyle out west, and we have people from all over the place. And what we end up falling on for the most basic understanding is our standard procedures in the military. So that helps, where we have all been trained to a certain level, in the military, and then we get there and everyone starts to figure out how do we do it different in Nevada than we do it in Minnesota or in Iowa. And so it's just there'd just be a lot of random conversations about personal lives and what people's experiences were, and then we'd fall back on our military experiences and just kind of have to mesh those together and see what kind of sticks. And a lot of stuff does change over the time of the deployment. There's how things, there's so many people have good ideas, and you just kind of pick the best one and we just go with it. But yeah, you'd see it in sports especially, but I mean, I'd say, oh, it's something I get groceries up at Hy-Vee. What's a Hy-Vee? Stuff like that. It takes a while to figure out, like, if you haven't talked to many people outside of your little core area, it's like, man, they don't have Hy-Vees anywhere else than here.
Or Culver's.
Yeah, Culver's, that's another one. But I guess I don't have Costco down here. That's a big one that everyone really likes to talk about for some reason.
All right. I do kind of want to wrap things up here. We're sitting at 16 minutes, and I want to keep this somewhat brief here. So if there was any advice you have to pass along to a high schooler, maybe they're considering joining the military, maybe they have no idea what they want to do after high school, maybe they're just trying to navigate their way through daily life during a pandemic, could you pass along some advice to high school age kids in Princeton, Minnesota?
Yeah, so I'd say stay positive. That's a huge thing. And go reach out to all these different people. Job shadow if you can. Get out of your comfort zone and do some research on a computer at school or wherever. And then go reach out to these places that you think you might even have any interest in. And go knock on the door and call the place and see if you can go there. Go to the airport. Whatever you think you want to do, go and visit the actual people doing the job and see what they have to say about it, because you'll get a much better feel and you'll get that deep feeling in your stomach whether or not you think that's something you'd want to do. And it is a little bit uncomfortable sometimes going to introduce yourself to some random person at some job that might be intimidating, but just go for it, and you'll learn pretty quickly if something feels like it's the right thing.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. Otherwise, the only thing you're going to know is school, and you might end up being a teacher, which isn't a bad thing. But if the only thing you know is school and you don't get yourself out of your comfort zone, you're going to end up doing what I do, which is a good thing. But maybe you want to be a pilot. So go out and meet somebody that's doing something a little bit different. All right. I really, really appreciate you coming on and talking to me here, Evan. Big picture, thank you for your service. Everybody at Princeton High School appreciates your service, and thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Stay safe, and good luck with any sports you guys get to play this year and any other things you're doing. So,
you bet. Go Tigers.
All right. Thanks. Go Tigers.